Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bleav in Bengal podcast. Yours truly, Solomon Wilcox. And today we have two very special guests to help preview the week one matchup between the Cincinnati Bengals and the New England Patriots. First of all, former New England Patriots wide receiver Chris Hogan joining us on the show. And then, of course, his co-host, Boston Globe reporter Christopher Price joining us. They co-host the Patriots Report podcast right here on the Bleav Network. Guys, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Doing great.
Doing great, Solomon. Thanks for having us.
It's always great to have you. We'll get down to the game in a minute, but first we have to tell our audience about the Bet Online. Of course, it is the world's most trusted betting platform and the number one source for everything football, from the preseason of NFL games. Now that we're going into the regular season, college football, Bet Online you get every stat, every matchup, even live odds and the spreads while the games are being played. And of course, you can be part of the winner take all $300,000 of the NFL Survivor Pool, which is coming up this season. And of course, when the game is over, all you got to do is head to Bet Online. And of course, it's the online casino where you can play blackjack, poker, and of course, you could be one of the people playing on 150 slots. So let's get to the game that's coming up week one at Paycor Stadium. All eyes are going to be on, of course, the Cincinnati Bengals offense, wondering if Jamar Chase is going to be able to play in that game. In what way, shape, or form would that change things for the New England Patriots defensively? Because I have the Patriots defense as a really good group, despite maybe they don't have the quarterback, but we know Gerard Mayo is going to have this defense ready.
Yeah, really, in a lot of ways, this defense is the strength of this team, Solomon. When you look at what they were able to do last year, for the bulk of the year last year, without Matthew Judon, without Christian Gonzalez, the numbers they were able to put up, they kept this team competitive for much of the year. Last year's Patriots team, they lost 8 games by 7 points or less, and a lot of that was because of the defense, the defensive play. It's going to be a huge test for them to start the season. I talked to Jabril Peppers about this in the locker room yesterday. Look, they have people who can kill you on the outside. They can have people who can kill you up the middle. So it's going to be a real challenge for them. We're going to get a real sense of just how good this group can be right out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it this morning, Chris and I said, going into this game, Gerard and that defensive staff is going to have 2 game plans, right? They're going to go into preparing for Jamar Chase to be on the field. And then on Sunday, if for whatever reason he's not stepping on the field and he's not suited up, there's going to be a whole separate game plan that these guys are going to have to be prepared to roll out, because, I think first and foremost, we have to be able to stop him on the outside, take that away. And then after that, if he's not out there, now we're going to have to do some different things. So it should be, again, all eyes are going to be on that come Sunday afternoon when, warm-ups, waiting to see if he steps on the field.
Yeah, I think the equation changes completely for the Cincinnati Bengals offense. With Jamar Chase, look, their chances of going out and playing well on offense is at a tremendously high level. Without a Jamar Chase, going up against a Patriots defense that we know all starts really on the back end, their ability to disguise coverages, confuse a quarterback, I think it's an even playing field at that point. I got to ask you, and we'll start with you, Chris Hogan, when you hear the name Joe Burrow, even though we know that Gerard Mayo is going to bring a really good defense, you get 2 weeks to prepare. Going in to start the season, you're going up against a Bengals offense with Joe Burrow. But when you hear that name, what comes to mind?
Prepared.
Yeah.
I've watched him, since he's gotten into the league. I love the way that he carries himself. I mean, he's a competitor, man. He's coming out to compete every single game. He's one guy in that Bengals locker room that I don't think is going to overlook this team, coming into Cincinnati on Sunday afternoon. He knows that Patriots have a good offense. I mean, good defense. He knows that we got some young guys and not really sure what our offense is going to look like this year. But he's not going to overlook those guys in the back end and the front seven. So I fully expect him to come prepared and ready to play on Sunday for 4 quarters, because I think that's what it's going to take, Sunday afternoon.
Christopher Price, your thoughts on Joe Burrow?
I think he's one of the best in the league. Look, he's on that short list of one of the, when he's healthy, he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league, in my opinion. I echo what Chris said. Look, he's a guy who's prepared. And if there's one guy in the locker room, and we talked a little bit about this, Chris and I, this morning, the Patriots' ability to maybe surprise a team, especially offensively, because there's so little film on what they've been able to do. Mm-hmm. Alex Van Pelt, Jacoby Brissett, the young wide receivers, the new offensive scheme that they have. I don't know if Burrow's going to allow them to do that. We went kind of back and forth on the Patriots report today, and I just don't know if the Patriots have that gear, that same gear that a team like the Bengals do. And specifically on the offensive side of the ball, if you're the Patriots, what you need to do, you need to keep this game manageable in all areas of the game. You need to be able to keep it offensively. You need to be able to, on second and third, manageable. And then you need to take the air out of the football. You need to be able to run the ball, kill the clock, keep the ball out of the hands of a guy like Joe Burrow if you want to have a chance of winning this thing.
I want both of you to respond to this question. Chris, we'll start with you because this offseason, or really during training camp, during the preseason, the Patriots traded their pass rusher extraordinaire, Matthew Judon. Christian Barmore is a guy that's dealing with some illness, injury issues right now. Who's going to be the guy that provides the thrust of a pass rush against Joe Burrow? And how do you see them matching up with the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line?
Keon White is the guy who first and foremost is going to be relied upon to kind of, what's the best phrase I'm looking for? You kind of take a page out of the Moneyball book and just, kind of recreate Judon in the aggregate. You have a guy like Keon White. You have Josh Uche, who I think had one really good year a couple of years ago when he was alongside Judon. He kind of fell off last year with Judon out of the lineup, but he's going to have to do more. Anthony Jennings is going to ask to do more. Dietrich Wise, those guys on the edges are going to have to be able to recreate some of that pressure that Judon was able to bring over the last couple of years in New England. But yeah, Keon White is my guy, man. He is poised for, I think, a double-digit sack here. And I think he was one of the reasons, quite frankly, that, Matthew Judon didn't get the big contract that he was looking for, because they could get kind of a relatively good facsimile, a relatively positive facsimile out of Keon White as on a rookie contract, as opposed to paying Matthew Judon upwards of $7 million a year annually.
Chris, your thoughts?
I think realistically, I think it's going to be a mix of all those guys. And I think that they're going to try to keep them fresh throughout the game. So as much as we can sub, as much as we can put fresh legs, especially early, listen, week one, none of these guys have played 4 quarters of a football game. Going into second, third quarter, they've played 30, 40 snaps. Every single one of those guys is going to be gassed, right? Especially if you put long drives together, like we hope we can, or, since the Bengals are hoping they can as well. So, I think you're going to see a mix of those guys. You're going to rely on Keon. I think Dietrich is going to play a big role. I mean, he just got voted captain of one of the teams. So, that he's going to come out with he's a lot of responsibility on his shoulders and holding that role and that title on that team. So, there's this defense is going to play with a lot of energy. I think we can all agree on that. Gerard's going to have these guys going. The back end is good. Jabril Peppers is going to be a voice in the secondary. He's going to be a guy to, that we're going to look to all year to make some plays in the back end and also, just be a voice and a leader on that team. So, as much as we can mix and keep guys fresh and healthy and just, keep that motor running, man, and just try to get to the quarterback as much as possible. I think that's going to be the key.
Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo is anticipating seeing the incumbent veteran quarterback Jacoby Brissett under center. But you get the sense it took the Patriots a while before they named Jacoby Brissett as the starter. You get the sense that there's not that big of a difference, that Drake May left a huge impression on the coaching staff. Tell me, how long is the leash? If Jacoby Brissett struggles week one, could Drake May make an appearance in the very first game, week one, for the Patriots?
Welcome to our world, Sullivan.
Yes.
This is all it's been
that we talk about every single day, man.
Yeah. For the last
it changes weekly too.
Yeah, it really does. I'll say this. Look, the simple answer here is, in a vacuum, Drake May had a better summer than Jacoby Brissett did if you just look at it individually. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think there is an infrastructure in place to support a young quarterback in the way that he needs to be supported right now when you look at the offensive line, when you look at some of the skill position guys. And so you turn to a guy like Jacoby, who knows Alex Van Pelt's scheme better than maybe anyone else in that building, is a guy who's been around the league. You let him take the slings and arrows the first couple of weeks, at least the first couple of weeks, while they kind of build up an offensive identity a little bit, while they kind of get up to speed. You also want to make sure that when you do make that move, you can't even, don't just, the idea of pulling him if he, lays an egg or something is horrible, because then you get into Zach Wilson territory and you start messing with the kid's confidence. And then it's just a disaster. So I think they're doing the smart thing for the long term here. You need to have a long runway for this kid, because again, he doesn't have the people around him necessary to be able to make him a success early on in his career.
Listen, I think if you can keep Jacoby on his feet, I think that he is going to help you win football games this year. I think that he has a massive chip on his shoulder right now, one that I think that he came into this league with, and I think that it has grown this year like 10 times, just because, we drafted Drake. We want Drake to play. All of Foxborough wants to see Drake play. But at the end of the day, this kid, he had a great summer. He played well in the preseason. I really loved what he did in the preseason. I did. I thought he made really good decisions. He was moving the ball well. Give him time to develop. He is 23 years old. Give him a little bit of time. Let him learn. Let him see how the NFL is. Let him see how the speed really is on game day. Let him take the mental reps. Jacoby's going to go out there. I really think that he's going to play well this year. And to Chris's point, we can't just hit the panic button the second that he throws a pick or an interception or we lose a game. Like, it's the NFL, man. Being a quarterback is the toughest position in the NFL. It is hard to win in this league. I think we got to give Jacoby a fair, time to, try to win some football games for this team, and then give Drake a little bit more time to develop. And then later on in the season, we can make that decision if it needs to happen.
And we should let our Cincinnati Bengals fans know that this is Jacoby Brissett's second stint with the New England Patriots. He began his career there when Tom Brady was there, when Jimmy Garoppolo was there, and really had great success there. And that's why this organization feels very comfortable with him in that incumbent role. He seems that you guys can help us out here. How has he really helped with the growth and the development of Drake May? He seems ready to share the room, ready to share, even though he's going to compete and put his best foot forward. But something tells me he's very comfortable with this organization and with the coaching staff as well.
Yeah, I think, you can reference the relationship that he's had with Alex Van Pelt going back to the days in Cleveland. Van Pelt is installing a new offensive scheme here in New England. And again, it's basically him and Austin Hooper, who came from Cleveland. Those are the two guys who know the scheme better than anyone. So you can kind of start from there. But in a lot of ways, Solomon, he is the perfect man for this transitional moment. This is a guy who's been around the league, is one of the most well-respected guys, not just in the locker room, but in the league in general. He said, and I thought he struck a perfect tone in the spring. He said, look, there's no ego involved for me here. I'm going to come into this situation. We're all going to compete, and the best guy for the job is going to have the job when the season starts. If that's me, that's great. If it's not me, that's great as well. We just want to do what's best for the team. I think Chris brings up a really good point, though, at the same time, that I don't want to say there's a bit of an edge when you talk to him, but he says, look, I can be a mentor and I can also be the perfect guy to start the season for this team. I can bring something to the table. For me, the bottom line, when you look at Jacoby Brissett versus the quarterback play that New England's gotten over the last couple of years, it's clear that they're not going to lose games because of the quarterback. And that necessarily wasn't the case the last couple of years. I don't know if Jacoby's going to win games necessarily, but you're not going to have the quarterback make the awful, deadly mistake in the worst possible moment like we saw, here a couple of times last year.
Chris, help me to understand, who are the wide receivers that Cincinnati Bengals secondary should be most concerned about? The Bengals are trying to sort of get a good feel for who's going to be the starting corner opposite of Cam Taylor-Britt. Will it be DJ Turner? Will it be former first-round pick safety Dax Hill? And what are some of the things that they should be focusing on? Who are the wide receivers that you have seen emerge that could become playmakers for the Patriots offense?
Well, the guy for me is still, and Chris and I talk about this all the time, the guy for me is Pop Douglas right now. He's the number one option in the passing game. He is the guy who I think if everything holds together for him, and look, health was a big problem for him last year, but if everything, if he is healthy for all 17 games, this guy has the potential to be a Dollar General version of Tyreek Hill. You can line him up in the backfield. You can get him in motion. You can do an awful lot of things with him. He can contribute on special teams. He's an undersized guy. He's not the traditional X receiver. You're going to move him around a lot, but I think he's going to be the guy who's going to do the most work in the passing game, and the Patriots are going to rely on him. The other guy, too, and we talked a little bit about this before we started, Jalen Polk is a guy who is wise beyond his years. This is not a guy who acts like a rookie. This is a guy who, at least in his demeanor, his attitude, his approach, feels like he's been in the league for a couple of seasons, and I mean that in the best possible way. I'm not saying he's going to come out and catch 60, 70 balls this year as a rookie, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a key part of that passing game sooner rather than later.
Chris, you played that position in this league. What are you seeing with this group, and who you think might emerge during the 2024 season?
Listen, we don't in this group. It's a young group, right? We don't have a veteran receiver in there that's been in the league for 5-6 years, or even in the system or the organization for a long time. So I love the young guys. I really do love Pop. He really came on last year. He had some some mental errors. He fumbled the ball early on in the season, but he learned from it. He knows when to get down now. When the play is over. He did some really good things. So, we are going to rely on him. But the two young kids that we drafted, my expectation of them is way up here, because I think that they have the ability, and I think they definitely have the talent. I don't want to sit here and say, oh, they're a rookie. I want to say, you're in the NFL now. Here are the expectations, and we need you to go out there and play like you've been in the league for 2-3 years. And to be honest, I think we saw some of that in the preseason. They caught the ball well. They were physical. They're going to have to, know how to do all the different things, right? Blocking in the run game, getting physical, being a little bit dirty, get your hands dirty, man, because the more that you're able to help the run game, the more it's going to help the pass game. So I have a lot of expectations for those young guys. I think that we're going to see, again, I don't know if we have an identity. I don't know if we have the formations or the personnel set right now. I think you're going to see a mix of whoever's dressed during, for this game coming Sunday and for the rest of the season until we really establish our core group. But those three guys, I have some pretty high expectations for. And to be honest, we're going to look to them to make some big plays, because we're not built. This team is not built to just throw chunk plays down the field. But when they come, that's going to be important for us to be able to hit some of these things and change some field position in some of these games.
See, that's going to take some getting used to, I think, for a lot of people, even for people in Cincinnati, as the Patriots prepare to come to town week 1 to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. This isn't Bill Belichick's Patriots team. This isn't Tom Brady's team anymore. It's a new era for the New England Patriots. And what that leads me to talk about is something that in the past, I don't think you ever had to worry about under Dante Scarnecchia, the great offensive line coach. You never had to worry about where they're going to have a great offensive line in front of their quarterback. But this offensive line has undergone some criticism. A lot of people poking holes at it, wondering what we're going to get. And they've got to block two guys coming off the edge for the Cincinnati Bengals, and Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, who can really get after it. What is this offensive line facing when it comes to trying to stop those two edge rushers? What are some of your biggest concerns?
I look, Solomon, I told Chris this morning, I've written like 450 stories since the start of camp questioning the state of the offensive line, because it's really true. And honestly, man, that's one of the reasons why you're not starting Drake May. That's one of the reasons why you don't want to have him undergo a trial by fire here in the early stages of his career. The interior of the line is probably going to be okay. David Andrews, City, so you have some good guard play. Nick Leverett has been mixed in there. They have a rookie out of Texas A&M, Layden Robinson, who I thought he's played pretty well. The tackle position, you feel okay about the right tackle position because you have Mike Onwenu, who started at guard last year, went out to tackle. He's versatile. He can play both. He got a big contract in the offseason. I think he's probably their best and most versatile offensive lineman. The left tackle spot is anyone's guess. Even as we sit here on Tuesday before the opener, arguably the most important position, they've had a bunch of guys go through there. Vidarian Lowe, Chikuma Okorafor, There's 3 or 4 other names, that I can throw at you here, but they haven't been able to get that right. And it's been a struggle all summer. It's going to be a struggle here to start the year. Probably, if he's healthy enough, it's going to be Vidarian Lowe because he got the majority of reps over there over the course of the summer. But I could see Okorafor end up starting there if Lowe is not healthy. Caden Wallace, 3rd-round pick out of Penn State, who played a lot of right tackle in college because Penn State had an All-American at left. He's seen some time at left tackle. You could see him over there. Look, with Dante, and it's funny you bring up Dante. I talked to him about a week or so ago, and the idea is you just need to minimize your problems. If you can get Owenu and Andrews and Sidiso and kind of get them in a spot where they can be okay in kind of man situations, then, you can maybe run a tackle out there. You can have the back chip. You can at least slow down someone off the edge. But look, it's not going to be easy. As you mentioned, Cincinnati's got great pressure off the edge. And this is going to be a real test for this offensive line moving forward.
We talked about it a little bit too. It's going to take all 11 guys to get this thing going here on offense. And when I say that, Jacoby's not going to have all day to drop back and just, go through his reads 1, 2, 3. That ball is going to be in and out of his hands quickly. They're going to rely on the run game to open some things up. But when we do want to take shots downfield, when we do end up in 3rd and long situations, when we do have to drop back and, let things develop, backs are going to have to be involved. Tight ends are going to have to be involved. Receivers are going to have to be involved. And I think you're going to see – I don't think Alex Van Pelt is no dummy, man. I mean, I think he understands what he has, and he's going to have to play to his strengths. That was one of the best things that I always loved when I played for Bill and for Josh, right? He always he never wanted to just run a play just to run a play. We were going to put guys in good spots. So let's use that to our advantage and try to give some help where we need some help. And then we'll see, let things develop down the field if we need to, but get the ball out of your hands and don't even give those guys a chance.
One more thing, if I could, real quick, Solomon. The Patriots are working with a new offensive line coach this year in Scott Peters, who favors something called the strike system. And so there have been some guys who have, I don't want to say struggled with it in the early going. It's a very technical approach. And I think the rookies, because they're kind of a blank slate at this level, I think are maybe picking it up a little bit faster than some of the guys who've been around a couple of years. So that kind of figures into the conversation when you talk about the offensive line as well.
Scott Peterson is one of the young up-and-coming, well-known in NFL circles, one of the young up-and-coming offensive line coaches, and work with a lot of guys, and a lot of the old-timers believe in Scott Peterson, right? And so he's crossed a really good bridge from the old-school offensive line coach to what you could expect on the horizon for what is to come. He teaches techniques I think are going to be more widely taught around the National Football League. We got to wrap it up with this, Chris, and I want to hear from you. Then, Christopher, we'll come back to you because, Chris, I think you guys playing for all those great Patriots teams, you guys had a host of receivers, and we were talking about this before we started recording. You guys were just so smart, and you guys were so good at how you worked around Tom Brady. It was a complicated system that required you guys to be on the same page with the quarterback. But Bill Belichick never stroked any big checks for those wide receivers. And now Jamar Chase is trying to get his due. So when you see him at Paycor Stadium, you may have something to say about that. But just kind of talk about that era of wide receivers as you guys kind of fashion some of what we're seeing in today's modern-day passing game. And now the wide receivers and the pay structure and how they're compensated, it's showing that the wide receivers can be the biggest part of the offense next to the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're living in the world now. This is a passing league.
Yes.
Right. We're all seeing that. It's all spread offense. I know we're in the NFL. We're going to see quarterbacks under center, but we don't see that anymore. It's let's spread it out and let's see if these guys can cover our highly paid wide receivers. And I think Jamar Chase he deserves what he's asking for. He's one of the top 5 guys in the league, in my opinion. And he's extremely talented. What we did in New England and the time that I was there, Bill and Tom, Josh, all those guys, we were just the expectations and what we were supposed to do and how well we were supposed to know it. It was the expectations were high. The second that I walked in that door, you were expected to be able to block, be able to diagnose defenses on the fly, know 3 or 4 play calls in the huddle, and then be able to, understand that Tom might give you a signal out of the corner of your eye. You better understand that he's giving it to you or you're not going to play. So to be honest, I loved playing. New England helped me in my game. I took my football knowledge to another level of being able to understand what is going on in the field and what defenses are trying to do. Early on, it was just kind of like, okay, this guy's covering me. It's cover 3, cover 4. I know he's dropping here. I need to get in here. Totally different game when you look at it from the way that Bill helped and Tom looked at it. And I think today's game, because it's so heavily in that passing, and the quarterbacks are throwing 40, 45 times a game.
Yeah.
These are the quarterback and the receiver are arguably your most important positions on the field. Mm-hmm. And if you can have one of these franchise type players, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, I mean, you can go down to AJ Brown, down to all these guys that are capable of changing a game single-handedly just by throwing them the football. The pay should be reflected. Yeah. And I think you do that with the quarterback, you should be able to do that with a wide receiver.
And somewhere Randy Moss is wanting to change the date, the birth date on his birth certificate, right? Born a couple of decades later, this guy's breaking the bank because he truly was one of the greatest ever. Christopher Price, Chris Hogan, we thank you guys. You guys keep up the great work on the Patriots podcast right here on the Bleav Network. We want to thank you guys. Keep up the great work. Thank you for joining us on the Bleav in Bengal podcast here on Bally Sports Ohio. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Don't forget to join us next time.